This is such an honor. I've seen the first season twice. I'm already in the middle of season 2. I think
Oh,
what you guys do,
amazing.
the
Wow.
emotions on this show are what make it so brilliant because you care for these characters in the middle of all the absurdity and the insanity. I know we can't talk a lot about season 2. So, Jack, I'm going to ask you a question I've wanted to ask you since I've watched the first episode.
Ooh,
Can you
please.
walk me through the filming of the Robin death scene and how that was shot? Because that camera shot that goes around you and then the blood fall, what did that look like on the day as you shot it?
Oh,
And like
man.
those arms you were holding.
It was a challenge because it was my second day on set. It was that scene was my, it was very much a insane welcome to the world of the show. And that's a scene that I wanted to get right so badly because it sets forth a lot of the events to come, especially from Huey's perspective. So I wanted to make sure that, because on the surface, not on the surface, but this scene is objectively darkly comedic, but it needed to feel like a real loss for the character for me. So, it was a hard day. It was an emotional day, despite how insane it is. But, camera wise, they had this rig. It was a swiveling camera on an arm that was like a slow motion lens, or I guess it's slow motion. I'm not great with cameras, but it was a slow motion camera. And what they would do was basically Jess Salguero, who played Robin, would be in front of me. We would have that last line. We would like kiss, and then she would just step away. And I had to pretend like I didn't know what was coming. But then there was I can see in my, off the corner of my eye, there's a blood cannon and just a dude with a blood gun aimed directly at my face. And that was the scariest thing in the world. So it was an eventful day and a great welcome to a show. But it was a lot, but it was great.
It's a brilliant scene. They're saying I have 2 minutes left, so I'm gonna try to get 2 more quick questions in. Aaron, I am so blown away by the emotions of your character. The arc you have with your mom, episode 5, the speech you give is brilliant. But I wanted to talk to you about the practical elements on set. The show feels so tangible. And I saw a picture on your Instagram where you had lights on your hand, and I wanted to ask about what other practical elements are there for your character. Like, that's such a cool little concept to have that. Can you talk about that aspect of it?
Yeah, no, it's really cool. They do a really amazing job of combining on-set little technical things that we can use combined with the special effects. They do an amazing job. I would say that, that's pretty much the primary thing is they'll literally they'll rig my body. So when I'm playing Annie, I mean, it's a whole contraption basically that I'm wearing underneath my clothes where there will be something and it will be like, it's like a little box on my back and they'll wire, like a wire through my entire costume. So I have to be wearing, or ideally I'm wearing a long sleeve shirt. And then, so little do you know, I'm basically feeling like a robot. And then they wire it so that, there are palm lights on my palms and they can cue them to light up. So it's really cool. Like, I remember the first time I saw it, ironically, because in episode 1 of season 1, I say, don't look at them, otherwise they'll blind you. I remember the first time I looked at them, they were so bright. I looked at them and I was like, I nearly blinded myself, which is a rookie move. But yeah, it's cool. They do such a good job. But it does definitely make you feel a little bit like a robot in a way when you've got that much wire wounding around your body.
It's amazing. Jack, before I go real quick, the translucent death, the blood that as it hits you, what was that like on set? Did it just hit you? Did you know it was coming at that moment? It was such an amazing moment in the show. I love the sign behind you. It's brilliant.
Oh, it's insane. It was again another moment in episode 2, no less, of just a bunch of blood cannons aimed at my face, and I have to pretend like they're not coming. I mean, I guess I am kind of in control of it, but it's always a little terrifying just to see that many things aimed at your face. But it's kind of my thing now, and I guess I'm embracing it.
Carl, I'm going to start with you first. The season 1 cliffhanger is one of the most insane things because I was waiting to find out what was going to happen. I was just interested to ask you, since we can't get into too much spoilers on season 2, what it was like filming that reveal. And did you know that was going to be the reveal before you shot the earlier parts of the season? Did they tell you that initially, or did you find that out when you shot the last episode?
No, I was well aware of what the season 1 reveal was. Quite ahead of time going into it. It was great to shoot. Just to to really throw the audience a curveball and to have a scene where I actually get to interact again with Anthony Starr's Homelander. It certainly sets up season 2. Season 2 for Billy Butcher is all about finding his wife, getting her back, rescuing her, and of course he needs the boys to do it. But because of season 1, that's a lot more difficult to do than he would have anticipated or hoped.
Yeah, and Laz, I love in the first season when your character gets that phone call from his wife and he's talking about grilling tilapia. I was wondering, the ringtone that your character has, is that something you build in, or is that something the show builds in with the script?
That's all Eric Kripke, man. I busted out laughing because I remember the meme for a long time. And so I had no idea that was going to be my ringtone. And it just continuously goes with the theme. Mother's Milk likes musicals. He watches Downton Abbey.
By the way, we found out that sorry to interrupt. We found out that Laz is not a fan of Downton Abbey because for the first 2 takes he was calling it Downtown Abbey.
I had no clue.
It's a better name for their show.
Right.
So one thing I want to ask you is, because the season 1 cliffhanger was so amazing and we couldn't wait to see what happens in season 2, for each of you, what is the best and most shocking cliffhanger you have ever seen in a show in the time that you've watched all the shows you've watched? What's the greatest cliffhanger you've experienced as an audience member?
For the boys or in general?
Just your personal favorite, something that shocked you like that.
Oh, wow. That's a big question.
Well, for me, if you need time to think, for me, the greatest shock ending of all time, it's not a television show, but it's a movie. It's got to be the original Planet of the Apes when, Charlton Heston's character discovers he's on planet Earth and he's standing in front of the Statue of Liberty. That's a classic game changer ending.
Yeah.
Couldn't you take a little longer to answer the question?
All right, so last real quick before I go, just a message for DC. I know you're from DC. People love this show in the DC area. Anything you want to say to everybody who's watching you in the Washington, DC?
I'm actually in DC right now. I bailed ship. LA was getting too crazy with COVID. I came home. I am in the DMV. I love DC, Maryland, Virginia. Shout out to DMV. We're the best, baby.
Yeah, well, guys, thank you so much.
Totally missing LA.
Jesse, I'm going to start with you because I think the opening of season 1 is one of the most shocking scenes I've ever seen ever. Like when Jack he's holding the arms of Robin. I was just wondering what you remember about filming that moment, the reaction shot when he sees you and the blood just drops. Like, what did that look like on set when you were filming that? Like, what do you remember about that moment?
Man, that was one of the most impressive days of production that I've ever witnessed. I've never seen cinematography done like that before. There was like a crazy camera rig that went from
shot.
Like it was, the rig literally goes from a profile shot of of Jack and I forgot the actress's name that plays his girlfriend, but it goes from like a profile shot of them to a pull back to shows like me running, and then to like a tilt down up thing that shows just the hands. It was crazy. And there was a gun over there. It was full of like a decanter of blood that they threw onto Jack's face, like at the exact moment. It was so well orchestrated and impressive. Like I kind of I was watching, but I was afraid I was gonna miss my cue because I couldn't take my eyes off of what was happening. It was so sick.
It's an amazing scene. Chase, I'm actually very interested. What I love about the show is the practicality of it. Everything feels like it's there and tangible, and like that's the beauty of what the show has done. How practical is the makeup in regards to the gills and the suit? Is it all like the movement of it? Is it animatronic? How is it being pulled off?
Well, yeah, it's twofold. So I don't always obviously have the prosthetic gills on my rib cage unless they're filming, obviously with the vest opener or something. And then, so first season when we had the Deep getting a taste of his own medicine from the girl that he brought back from the bar or what have you. They created a fake torso of myself, and I'm trying to remember. So basically, we shot some with the thing, but they needed the torso, so there was more room within the gills. And so anyway, I was sitting on the couch, the thing's over me. She's kind of, you know, doing her part. The camera's on me, you know, and someone pulls behind me, like pumping air in the thing and making the move. Now I think they also added in some special effects as well. It's all very, very disgusting. So
it's an insane scene. I mean, it's really one of the most memorable scenes in the show. You even know how gross it is. That's the brilliance of the show, is you care about these people, these emotions that they're going through. And Chase, in the second season, there's that aha moment sequence where I just found it to be so emotional. Chase, I'm going to ask you this because I feel like you've been asked a million times about, you know, Gossip Girl in your career. I know you have. But I'm genuinely interested to know how that impacted you as an actor and what you still use from that show that you learn as an actor in a show like this. Very different genre, obviously, but I'm very curious to know like what you pulled from that show and that experience that you still use now. And do you miss the character you played at all?
I mean, listen, I learned, you know, from that show in general. I mean, it was like a boot camp in TV, because it's like, you know, make the day. There's so much to do with so many characters involved. And also, you know, you learn you do so many takes. I think one of the most valuable things I took away from that was switching it up, was giving us something different every time, no matter what, you know, sort of framework you're dealing with. And this show's there's just a lot different formulas. This one, there's a lot more, they just improv a bit more as well. And there's, you know, a lot of times you'll find like, you know, the camera over the shoulder camera, which adds like a nice element of freedom to it, to move and stuff like that, which we didn't have that growing up with that other show. But also, you know, it taught me how to make friends. I mean, we were such good friends on that show, and to sort of cherish those times together. And I feel like we have something similar with this show as well. There's not one bad apple in the bunch, and we need each other. You know what I mean? We need that camaraderie when we have the downtime up there in Toronto. And yeah, and the Deep's in a rough place. You know, he's got a lot more to worry about than dolphins in the ozone layer. So
yeah. Well, guys, they're wrapping me up. Jesse, I wanted to tell you that the scene in season 1 when you have to kill your girlfriend's character, the dialogue you have about the dinner that she ordered, I thought was such a brilliant moment. And again, that speaks to the genuine emotion of the show. And I was actually wondering, did you keep any of like the cereal boxes that they had with the A Train on it and everything?
Oh man, I should have, but no, I didn't. Most of those scenes where they have all that stuff, like I'm not in. You know what I mean? It's rare that A Train goes somewhere that has like a bunch of A Train products. But you know, if I ever do a scene in a drugstore or a convenience store or whatever, and there's a bunch of A Train stuff, I'm taking everything next time.
So I actually have some questions about season 1 that I really wanted to ask you, specifically, Tomer, for Frenchie. When he has his dialogue about the first kill, the 10 seconds, and he's smoking that cigarette, talking to Jack Quaid, it's such a brilliant moment because it's the true, genuine, grounded emotion of the show that makes you care for these characters, even though they're doing bad things. What do you remember about that moment and that scene and that delivery and the choice of the cigarette? I just love that moment in the show so much.
Oh, I'm blessed. First of all, thank you very much, brother. Yeah. Reading that scene, I remember thinking that's like what I guess each and every one of the boys feel somewhere, you know, inside, but will never speak it. And there is this rare moment of Frenchie with, you know, just a regular guy at the time, you know, Yui, and he feels free to speak for some reason. And then he wants to, you know, the bigger problem is then he wants to mask it right away by you know, offer him to take some drugs. Yeah, definitely a scene that sets up the boys' conflict in you know, the Soups dominated world. Bring it. You know, it could be like just, you know, the good guys versus the bad guys. But what makes this show so special is, you know, getting so deep inside the characters and exploring the humanity side of it all, not just a classical superhero television movie or whatever.
Karen, your performance in the show is brilliant as well, and you do so much without saying really anything. And I wanted to ask you about acting internally like that, and the idea of a camera being able to pick up on facial expressions and the way how much do you think about the way the camera being in your face and the way that you're speaking to the audience through no dialogue? I think it's brilliant how you do it. I'm just curious, do you have a process for that in regards to sending emotions towards the audience in a certain way without having to say much?
Yeah, I mean, you nailed it. It's a lot of facial expressions. It's a lot of body movement, knowing how your body works and all of that. But I think having a clear motive is Kimiko is there for survival. She is trying so hard, especially in season 1, to escape and be free and survive. So being able to communicate that is like a survival tactic. She has to be able to communicate it. She has to be able to say help to Frenchie in order to to live her life. So I think the dialogue is, and the process you mentioned comes straight from what I think Kimiko wants or needs within the circumstances that she's in.
Yeah, I love your relationship in the show. And I'll end on this. I think one of the brilliant things about this show, other than the fact that it's genuinely emotional, is that a lot of it seems to be done in camera. The effects seem to be happening in camera, especially when Jack Quaid's character blows up translucent and all that, and it just hits him. I was just interested, for each of you, do you have a particular gore effect or effect on the show that was practically there in person that was just kind of mind-blowing to see it happen or see it happen? So I'll start with you, Karen, and then I'll end with you, Tomer. But yeah, Karen, you seem like you have a really cool one.
Yes, I do. This is in season 2. It was our first day of filming, and I'm not going to tell you exactly what happens, but there's an explosion that happens, and oh man, the amount of blood that gets on it was so funny, because we all had to kind of brace, because we knew it was coming, but it has to look like a surprise. And it was genuine shock, because we were literally covered in blood, and we have, guys that are standing there with blood cannons, just cannons filled with guts and blood. And the director's like, 3, 2, 1, action. And they were like, somehow in that scene, Frenchie got away with little blood, but I think he just got really lucky. He was off to the side. That was an interesting first day.
I got it the day after. Don't worry about it. You did. Yeah. I was bloody this season. Yeah. I know. For me, I gotta say, I remember because I feel like all right. So the first season, there's the nail salon scene, where Kimiko leaves her trail along the way. And you know what? I think it's probably the first day I ever saw our makeup artist just putting the doll on the floor, and it was turned all the way around, and I remember looking at that, and my jaw just fell, and I was stuck in that for a couple of minutes until I remember Carl coming from behind and said, "You're right, mate." And I woke up from whatever I was experiencing, and in season 2, it was just like a walk in the park. It was so easy. I mean, buckets of blood are spilling all over, and you're like, another day in the office. That was insane. Not to talk about the whale. They dropped down one day. Crazy.
Anthony, I have to tell you, I think your performance in season 1, because I haven't seen all of season 2 yet, is one of the best performances I've seen in a long time, genuinely, because you find such a terrifying nature, yet a vulnerability to that character, a sweetness almost, that I find to be so fascinating to me. And I was just interested to know how you found how you were going to play him. I know it's based on material, but just the way you deliver your lines, the facial expressions, the smiles. Can you talk about how you found him, like just those particular traits?
I mean, honestly, it was just a question of trying to get a handle of the tone of the show. And then, we were really lucky. We got good writing and great writing, and a showrunner that encourages us to take risks and play. And he wants more, and he keeps saying, "Give me options, options, options." So that really encourages us to just try different things, and then they pick out the bits they like, and together we all work in and find a balance. And
but that's the delivery, though, the way you smirk or something before a line, like are those choices that you make, or is that coming from the writers and the directors?
I mean, it's on the page, but then our job is to fill the lines with us, and so I guess it's that combination, and then the ability to just throw it all away and play on the day. And I mean,
he's just really, really good, and he does his homework, and he allows as much. Like, he can't say it because then he's an actual monster. So like, he does all his homework. He knows that character back and forth, and so the choices that he makes are so surprising because he has created reasons behind everything that you would never see on screen. Okay, Ant. You're really good.
Good.
That's absolutely amazing. So the season 1 cliffhanger is one of my favorite cliffhangers ever in show or movie history. I couldn't wait to see what was going to happen with Karl Urban, and obviously that whole reveal of the son. For each of you, what is your favorite cliffhanger moment, either in cinema or in television history, that made you couldn't wait to see what was going to happen next? It could be anything.
I actually have one immediately. I was filming in Australia just before I got my first American job. Anyways, that's random, but it was just when Game of Thrones had come out. And there was an episode, I was meant to be going to bed because I had a 5 o'clock pickup to go to work. And it was 11 o'clock at night, and I'm watching Game of Thrones. And they cut Sean Bean's head off at the end of the episode. And I was like, no, I got to go to bed, but I got to know. He's the reason I watched the show. So I stayed up. I couldn't go to bed. I had to see the next, and they'd cut his head off.
Aya, for you, is there a cliffhanger that just blew your mind? You couldn't wait to see what was going to happen next?
God, I mean, it's funny that I'm like, oh yeah, I had that same reaction. I haven't seen Game of Thrones, but I read all the books, and I would stay up all night reading the books because they keep you like, they would just kill everyone. And you'd be like, no, I'm going to go a few more pages. They'll bring them back to life. It's an accident. Yeah. I mean, honestly, I don't have a great answer, but I did just finish a bunch of seasons of a show called The Humans and found out it's not renewed for another season, and they totally leave you on a cliffhanger. And I was like, well, great. Now I'm great. Cool. If the writers could call me and pitch me what would have happened just so I can let it go, I would appreciate that.
Before I let you go, Anthony, the moment at the end of season 1 where you whisper into Elizabeth Shue's ear, I'm wondering, are we ever going to get a sense of what he said, or is that going to be like a lost in translation kind of thing with like Scarlett Johansson, Bill Murray, where we'll never know what he says? And is what you're actually saying to her in her ear the actual line that is in the script? You just kind of play around with it on the day, since we don't know what you're saying.
We played around with it on the day, and it is going to be one of those things that is mysterious forever. But I think what happens afterwards is gives you a pretty solid indication of the kind of thing that I was whispering in her ear at that time. Of course, in most of the takes, I was whispering, "Your breath smells like peanut butter," something like that, just to mess with Elizabeth, because she's so fun to work with, and she would put up with a juvenile like me. But no, I miss her deeply, and but that will always be our secret.
The first thing I want to ask you is when the boys logo pops up, I love the way you utilize the words. I think it's in episode 2 of this season where Carl's like walking in the middle of the O. I'm just wondering how you design those, how you choose when that's going to pop up, and do you know when you're shooting it, that's where you're going to put it?
Yeah, we do. And we didn't know in season 1, we weren't sure what the title sequence was going to be, but then we kind of came up with this just kind of bold image that pops up. But now in season 2, once we knew that, we would design it, we would plan on it of what would be the big wide shot early in the show where the title would pop up.
So cool. Season 1 cliffhanger is obviously amazing. I love the last shot of season 1, the side shot with the sprinkler going. And I was interested to know the thought process, because I know you directed that episode, about the framing of that shot and ending your season on that side shot, and kind of what you were going for as a storyteller.
you know, it was this sort of last stand down, or showdown rather. It was just this last showdown between Butcher and Homelander, and then the reveal that Becca is there. And it was just this sort of last tableau of where they were, with the sprinkler. Like the sprinkler was really important because it was just this strangely suburban, almost David Lynchian, weird moment that they found themselves in, and it felt like the right way to end the show.
I'm very interested in Anthony's performance because it was one of the best performances I've ever seen from an actor. I've never seen somebody capture terrifying and vulnerable and sweet all in this very strange thing, yet you feel you care for the character based on his past and kind of how he was grown up. Like the decisions that he has in regards to the way he smirks or smiles, the way you put the camera in his face, it's all designed so amazingly. I'm wondering how that works in sync with what his performance is and the way your cameras are going to capture this like dark, weird, vulnerable tone that he has. It's so interesting.
Yeah, I mean, we, you know, I mean, look, we get a lot of coverage and we make a lot of those choices through trial and error in the editing room. You know, so not all of it is planned ahead. We're just trying to cover his performance the best we can. You know, but we do try to be very actor forward on this show, just because so few superhero shows are. And so we spend a lot of time on performance. We spend a lot of time giving them the space to deliver a great performance, especially when you have the caliber of actors we have in this show. And you just make sure that you're always covering the humanity of who they are. And he will consistently amaze you with these moments he's finding. So, you know, you just are, part of my job is just being smart enough to know when to keep your mouth shut and keep it rolling. And in his case, that's definitely the case.
I want to talk to you about season 1 specifically with the translucent effects. I found those to be so mind blowing. Like just a simple scene of him like peeing or something, whatever it was, like in the crate. And I'm just wondering how you capture that. And then the actual blood explosion that hits Jack after he presses it, was that operated by him with that button? Did he know it was going to hit him at that moment, or did you just surprise him kind of with it? I know he knew it was coming, but
no, he knew it was coming, and it comes on account. But it's a couple of things. I'll just talk about the explosion first. Like what the explosion is it's a, you know, massive blood bag wired with explosives that's on a stand that then, you know, just, and then the special effects guys hit a button and then it explodes out, and then the visual effects guys in post-production remove the blood bag so the blood appears out of nowhere. And then when you're on a close-up on Jack, there's someone off camera with something that's literally called a blood cannon. And it's exactly how it sounds. It's a bazooka-like cannon that is loaded with blood, you know, it's corn syrup mostly, and kind of gummy bits. And the reason he looks so scared is because he's staring down the barrel of a bazooka that is about to launch sticky red all over him at a propulsive force. And so, and that's what they do. They stand in front of him. There's a guy, and then they roll and they go 3, 2, 1, and then they got to launch this stuff. And he can't look like he's flinching before it hits. You know, like the natural instinct is to go like that. But you can't. You gotta be, and then all of a sudden the stuff comes at you. So it's an art, man. I give him a lot of credit for pulling that shit off.
Yeah, well, it's a brilliant, brilliant show. I really appreciate it. And tell Dan Trachtenberg that opening with Jack and the arms, and that's one of the most brilliant camera shots I've ever seen as it goes around, and then the little blood dots are hitting. It's such a brilliant scene.
Oh,
man.
thanks, man. No, I really appreciate it. Yeah, that's great.
Thank you for your time, and I hope you're staying safe. And thank you for the show. I really appreciate it.
Oh yeah, thank you. Yeah, you stay safe too.